All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January PTSA meeting. And for this meeting, it's going to be one of our special meetings. This is a meeting where we have some of our alumni to come back and share their experiences during their first semester in college. We're very excited to hear from our alumni. And before we get started on that, I'd just like to go through the format. We'll go through some principal updates, and then we'll go from there. Just a moment here as we get everyone into the room. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our January meeting. I just realized I didn't have everyone in the room when I welcomed everyone. So we're very pleased to have you here this evening to join us for our January PTSA meeting, where we're having our special annual alumni panel. This is an opportunity for some of our alumni to come back and share their experiences with us, so we can hear how their first semesters went, and we're looking forward to hearing from them. So before we get started, I want to just go through the format of the evening. We're going to go to some principal updates, and then we'll move into breakout rooms. And I'll share the breakout room there were two rooms shortly. We'll go from there. So after the principal updates, I'll share a slide that I have with the breakout rooms. We'll ask that our alumni go to the rooms listed. And then for our visitors tonight, you're welcome to select a room. You can change rooms if you would like at any time. So, and we are recording in both rooms so that we can share the recordings to those that were not able to make it this evening. So, before we get to the main part of our program this evening, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Doug Nelson for any principal updates.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it. Nice to be with you all this evening. And for those who are MCPS connected, our snow day for today. Hope you had a surprise morning where you got a little extra time just to do something that was fun and a little more relaxing. So I do have a few updates just to provide to everyone this evening. I'm going to start with one that is particularly important this time of year, but it is course registration time. So I do not want to miss an opportunity to make sure that I pass along to students and parents alike that this is a very important time in which decisions that are made for next year have a lot of important impact, not only to make sure that students have the opportunity to really work with their counselor on mapping out what is going to be a year-long experience in courses both in the first and in the second semester, but also that we stay on timeline, because there's impact to making those course selections, being that is how we also staff the school. So just a couple of reminders: if there are still some decisions that you need to make, please make those decisions to our current students sooner rather than later. I also want to encourage you, if you have any questions or if you just need to clarify anything, to please reach out to your counselor directly so that we can get those done in a timely fashion. But this is an important time of year as we're getting prepared to move into the next academic school year. So thank you for your attention to getting those course requests made so that we can plan appropriately. I also wanted to share a little reminder, and this will be I plan for my community update going into next week. It is almost the end of semester one. And so we are in kind of that final push to make sure that we get successfully through semester one and into semester two. For students and parents, again, sometimes there is a needed plan to make sure that you fully wrap up the class that you are currently in. Sometimes you will stay with that same teacher. Sometimes you're going to have a new teacher in semester two. So it is important to finish strong and to wrap up that first semester well. So there's going to be some advice that I communicate home over this weekend. Please pay attention to that. But additionally, students have been able to see their second semester schedules in Synergy. That has been out for some time. So to parents, if you've not had a chance to check in with your child and make sure that you've gone over, this is the time to do that in case there is any, again, specific requests that you need to go back to your child's counselor. This is the time to do that. I wanted to share with everyone in one of the updates this month that I communicated home. We have done some important work in our campaign around No Place for Hate. I think that that is important to continue to elevate and to continue to define our focus and working with ADL and around that school-based program to confront hate and bias in school. So we had an opportunity to do a lesson this past month in December, and then staff and students alike have been signing the No Place for Hate pledge, which is really important. And there's a great image of kind of where we have put that in our school to show our commitment to make sure that we stand for what is right and to confront hate and bias. And the last thing I just want to pass along to everyone, and this kind of falls under the umbrella of safety. One is I just want to say to all of our students and staff that are coming in, please make sure that you're safe tomorrow. It's going to be very cold and very frigid. And so please make sure that you bundle up and make sure you have a safe trip into school. And I also want to share with everyone, of course, I think many of you are aware, we of course had a second bomb threat that was called into our school on Friday, which is very unfortunate. But when we get back to school, that hit at a pretty interesting time, considering that it was around dismissal. So when we come back and school is back in function again, as principal, I just really look forward to getting our OSET together to debrief that experience to make sure that we continue to improve in our practices in that regard. But I've gotten questions from parents about that, and yet we still need to get back together at the school level in order to kind of really debrief everything that took place on Friday. So I look forward to getting started with that sooner rather than later tomorrow. So those are my 4 updates this evening. And so Brian, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for those updates. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You'll see a slide and it'll have the breakout rooms. I asked that our alumni go into those rooms, and then our guests for this evening can pick which room that they would like to go into. Okay, and if somebody can let me confirm that they can see the screen.
You can see it, Brian.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. Thank you all for joining this evening. Feel free at the end of the session to drop off, but do feel free during the evening if you wish to switch rooms, you can do so. All right, here we go. And thank you, alumni, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
And Jen, I'm just confirming you're going to 1, I'm going to 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. For those in the main room, if you need help getting into the breakouts, let me know, and I'm happy to help.
So I think one of the question that a lot of the students online right now are thinking about is, what are some of the experiences that you had at Wootton that helped prepare you for your college experience? So whether it's studying, activities, classes, anything that you can think of.
I can go first. So I think the thing that probably prepared me the most was AP exams and the availability of so many different courses, just because a college exam is very different from anything you'll do in high school, at least from my experience. So getting to actually study for like a giant cumulative exam like that was very helpful to me. One thing I will say though is that it's definitely a different caliber in college. So studying has been very different, and I had to almost relearn how to study in college because it was just a different caliber of expertise that I needed for a lot of my courses.
Yeah, so sort of going off of that, I think that for me, one of the things that I had to sort of refigure out was time management. Because in high school, the way that our schedule works, you're seeing every teacher every day. It's a little bit easier to, at least for my brain, I work better in sort of like short sessions, but I'm easily able to switch between subjects. So I think just generally the college schedule was a lot to adjust to, because you're only visiting like a few classes every day, but it's for longer. And more of your learning is more on you, and it's less of your teachers are there to teach you and more of like they're there to touch base with you. So I think just generally learning, I guess, how to study, I guess AP exams are the closest that you would get, and just knowing how to manage your time. And I'd say learning the way that you learn is really important.
I think the amount of work we got at Wootton was super helpful because going to college, like, of course, I'm in a different major, so I'm not really getting as much like math or English work, but knowing that I have to do that much work in high school is kind of helpful going into college because I wouldn't procrastinate as much, and I knew like I had to get this done at this time, and yeah, it just wasn't as bad.
Yeah, everyone else basically already said what I had in mind, but since my school is like more directed towards art, I guess AP art is pretty helpful for art school. Like you may not think much of it, but you can get some credit to skip some classes in art school, I believe. But for RISD, you can't really use that credit. So just a fact there. And yeah, for art critiques during art class, you may think it's not really much, but it's really helpful during actual critiques in art school, college. So adding on to what Andrea said about like credits and stuff, I think that the more gen eds you can get out of the way in high school, the better. I came in with enough credits to be qualified as a sophomore, so technically I could graduate a year early if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that, but now I have time to take a lot of interesting electives and even pick up another major or a minor if I'd like. So definitely getting some of those unnecessary courses out of the way.
That was actually a really good point. I used to be a dual enrollment coordinator at another MCPS school, so I really like that point. One question that a lot of people have, of course, is about living situations. So one of the questions that people had is about where are you living now at school? How did you go about that process in terms of like, how did you find a roommate if you have one, or if you have some alternative living arrangement other than a standard dorm, if you could talk about that. And then anything that you thought was critical in the like finding a place to live process as a freshman.
So my process was definitely a little abnormal. I'm in a living learning program at my school, so I was required to live in a specific dorm, which is La Plata Hall at UMD. It's one of the nicest ones. It has air conditioning. Not all of them do. So if you can get one with air conditioning, if you're at UMD, definitely go for that. There's actually a roommate finding system. So you can look for roommates by filling out like questionnaires, and then you can look for people with similar answers and like match with them. A lot of times I actually met, who I was supposed to room with on Instagram through a lot of schools have like an incoming freshman page. So you can just DM people who look cool. But the residence life messed up and put me in a single. So I don't actually have a roommate, but I lofted my bed and put a couch underneath so that I could still have people stay over because, it could be lonely in college with a single. So if you can get a roommate, I recommend one.
Yeah, so Georgetown works similarly in that they also have a built-in roommate matching system. It's called Charms. So you fill out the questionnaire on the website, and then you have like a little bio where you can like say some things about yourself that are not within the structured questions of like how late do you go to bed? Do you need like absolute quiet to study? And most people put their Instagrams in their bios, and that's actually where people like talk to each other because that's what updates most frequently. I will say that you're going to meet some people in your roommate screening process that should be friends but not roommates. I think that that's an important distinction to make because I love some of my friends right now, but I know that I could absolutely not live with them. So I think keeping in mind that, yeah, my roommate is over there nodding her head. you have to be aware that they are going to be your roommate first before they are your friend. And then making sure that you have like set boundaries between you two. At Georgetown, there was like a thing where you had to like fill out like a, if we disagree on this, we'll do this. So making sure that there's like set boundaries and established consequences, I think was really helpful. Even though like my roommate and I are great, we haven't had any problems. I think it's important to establish that you know what to do in case of an emergency or if you have a disagreement.
So my housing, I actually live in an apartment. I have my own room and then 3 other roommates. I was not supposed to be placed here, but my college kind of had a housing crisis. It's definitely nice living in my own room, but it does get lonely because I'm so far away from the freshman dorms. So I do recommend, like, if you can get a roommate and live by the freshman dorms, definitely do that. I think it's just like the first year experience that everyone needs. But originally I had met a roommate on Instagram. There's like a page, and they usually do this for every school, where you like post some pictures of yourself and like a bio, what you like to do, and just some things about you. And I just got so many messages. 2 of the people I actually met on Instagram are my closest friends now. It just worked out that we were in the same classes, and that was definitely really nice. But after meeting my roommate, we just requested to be together. It didn't work out. The housing center kind of just placed us differently, but it was definitely nice having that option at first. But I do recommend like definitely trying to do stuff as early as possible because um, housing gets filled up, and I do know people who have gotten placed in hotels or stuff like that because a lot of these colleges just over admit. So yeah, it's definitely important to do it early.
Yeah, similar process. The Instagram page, it's very helpful. You can easily reach out to people. And for me, we also like filled out like a form and uploaded it to a Google Drive where everyone can see and then choose, I guess. And yeah, um staying considering a roommate is very helpful because for your first for the first few weeks or like the first year, your roommate will be like your friend to start off of. So yeah, consider a roommate and not a single. Yes.
I think another thing, sorry, I just forgot to say this, is that don't be afraid to random roommate. I got placed with random roommates and I'm put in a pretty good situation. I think a lot of people were, actually most of my friends. And you just never know who you'll meet, and sometimes it just works out better.
All right. One of the other questions that people have is going to someplace new can be sort of intimidating. And so we're curious about how or what college activities you got involved with as a freshman, and maybe like how you found those activities, and what that process was like as well.
So UMD has a really cool thing where they have I forget what the website's called, but they have a website that has literally every single club listed. They also have something called the First Look Fair, where on McKeldin Mall, which is the giant green space in the middle of the college, they have like thousands of clubs advertising their club, and you can go sign up and everything, and it's a big event. So I went to the First Look Fair, I looked at the website and just asked some of my friends who are sophomores, juniors, seniors, just upperclassmen, what clubs they were in. So I'm in a few different clubs. I play club soccer at UMD. I also am in the Terrapin Trail Club, which is just like an hiking and backpacking club. Um, I try to do all the outdoorsy clubs. I'm in the Jewish youth group at my school, and I'm also in OSTEM, which is a space for queer STEM majors. So all of those I found either through friends or through the First Look Fair, or in the case of sports, just out of a desire to continue playing my sport.
Yeah, so Georgetown has a similar thing with the club fair, except we call it the cab fair. don't remember what CAB stands for, but I'm assuming the C is for club, where it's again on the lawn and a bunch of clubs are advertising. I would recommend that if you are going to one of these things, visit as many booths as you can, say yes, and then say no. Because it's always easier to back out of something that you realize that you're not very interested in than to try and get in like later on. I am doing co-curricular theater at Georgetown. It's nice. It's nice in that there are two separate so there's like co-curricular theater, and then there's the actual like theater department that's associated with the university. I'm on a bunch of emailing lists. I'm on Hoyas for Choice. I am on GU Pride. So a lot of these things operate through mailing lists. So if you're interested, just sign up for the mailing list if you can, and then after you can just unsubscribe if you choose not to, or if you can't make the meetings. It's nice to just know that they're there, even if you decide later on that it doesn't work out for you. And there's a nice way to meet people with similar interests.
So my school also has a club fair. Right now I'm not in any clubs just because my major can be very busy, and I knew that. But for me, I have such a great like close-knit group of friends due to my classes actually, because they are like 17 to 18 people studios, and then we have the same classes every day. But also I think it's important to go to all the welcome week activities. I definitely met people at all of them. I went with one of my roommates, and yeah, it was definitely a great way to meet people and just like feel around the campus without feeling awkward about making new friends.
Yeah, same thing as Savannah said. I went to like all the activities during orientation week, and it really helped tone down like the awkwardness because like everyone's at this point like trying to make friends, so like nothing's like considered weird. Um, and yeah, joining as many clubs as you can and just like being open to meeting people. That's like a good way to sort of adjust to like this new environment you're in.
Savannah actually said something interesting about her major, so I kind of want to pose this to all of you. I think all the kids at Wootton, we have a very set schedule and it's the same every year. So even though the classes might change, they're very used to that schedule. And I know Savannah was talking about like her major in particular was a very different schedule. So maybe if you guys could talk about first semester and talk about what maybe a typical weekday schedule looks like for you, that would be great.
So at UMD, they don't really have the same classes every day. There's usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday class. Sometimes there can be additional classes called discussions for some courses where you meet with your TA on different days for about 50 minutes and just talk about the course or do practice problems or quizzes for the week. So my schedule last semester was pretty tough. I didn't take too many credits, but I took some hard classes. Typical day for me, I'll go over like my Monday, Wednesday schedule. So I would get up, I had a 9 a.m. bioinformatics course. So I'd get up around like 7:30, eat breakfast, walk to my class. Then after my class was over, I would go to one of my study spots that I like to and either study or do work before my next class. Then I would walk over to my next class at noon. Then I would do my lecture. Then from there, I would head to lunch, do a little bit more work, and then go to my last class for the day. I was done by 3 every day, which was really nice. I intentionally made my schedule that way. And then after that, I would go back to my dorm. Then I would do work. Then I would eat dinner, then go to the gym or play soccer with friends or whatever. But there's definitely a lot more workload, especially as a STEM major. Like for finals week, I think there were some points when I was studying for like 13 straight hours a day for a week straight. It was pretty crazy, but typical workload per day, I would say 4 hours of homework. Nothing too crazy as long as you manage your time. But yeah, my tip for people who are making college schedules is just be aware of what time of day you're most productive and try to schedule your classes so that you have that time to work.
Yeah, so going off of your point, Lindsay, about knowing when you're productive, I realized that I was not a morning person, like at all. Um, and I was like, 9:30 is a decent hour considering when I went to Wootton. And then I came here and 9:30 was rough. 9:30 was rough. But that's what's nice about college is you sort of have the flexibility to make your own schedule. Like now I have a 6:30 p.m. class and I really like it. Definitely not for everyone. This semester I'm taking more credits than I did last time. So last semester I think I averaged around like 2 classes per day, but now, well, okay, no. I had no classes on Fridays, but I would have more classes per day. But now I have classes on Friday, which was sad. Uh, for me, I find that I can't work in my dorm. Okay, I can, but it's not really good for me. I think I find that I really need that separation of working space versus living space to function. Um, and it also helps me like get out of the dorm and not feel like I'm rotting in the same room every day. So I take breakfast in my dorm, and then at 11 o'clock, that's my first class. I head out, do class, and then I have like a 2-hour break in between. And that's when I go somewhere else. I text my friends to meet up, which let me tell you, it's so nice to be able to just text your friends and say, hey, I'm going here, meet me in 5 minutes, and they're just able to walk to you. Yeah, that's crazy to me. But I text my friends, I'm like, hey, is anybody studying here? And some days I'll do like a study crawl, which is kind of like when I just rotate different study spaces depending on how long I can stay productive in each one, because I find that environment is really important for me to be able to work. I have about 3 classes a day now. They're actually pretty short. An hour and 15 minutes is like, I think, standard class period here. But I have a bunch of political science and government major friends who have lectures that are taking like 2.5 or 3 hours. Yeah, I would say that it's easy to find myself doing nothing. It's so easy to do nothing. So I think that, again, this is going back to knowing how you work best. Find that I need to like be in motion. I need to feel like the ebb and flow of my energy as the day goes on to be able to work. And yeah, I follow where my motivation goes.
So my schedule is kind of blocked out. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are the same, and then Mondays and Wednesdays are the same. And then Friday, I actually have a lecture. So last semester, I still have all 8 a.m. classes, which really sucks. But because of my major, they just kind of put me like that was where we were going to be put as freshmen. But it actually hasn't been too bad. I'm very productive in the mornings now. And I think high school definitely helped with that. But so last semester I had studios. So I had 2D studio, 3D studio, and drawing. And then I had a lecture about industry theory. And then Fridays I had art history. And so Mondays I would have 2D in the morning, and then I'd have a little bit of a break in between, and then at 1 o'clock again, I'd have industry theory. Our studios usually are about 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is definitely a lot longer than high school, but it's actually really nice to be able to get stuff done. I get most of my work done in class until about the end of the semester when it gets really busy. But yeah, and then my lecture on Friday last semester was 3 hours and 15 minutes. That was definitely a lot. It was pretty late in the day. But now my lecture on Friday is only an hour, which is really nice. And then so this semester I take on Mondays pattern and draping, and then I take a CAD class, which is a computer class for the fashion industry. And then I'm done at 12:45, which is really nice. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have my sewing class, intro to sewing, and then I have a little break English class, which I don't usually have to take gen eds, but I just have to take English and math. So I'm getting that in this semester. And then after that at 2 o'clock, I have a drawing class, but it's actually been really nice having so little classes in the day because it's so much easier to focus on just one thing. But after my classes, me and my friends usually get lunch after, which is really nice. So I definitely encourage you to like take advantage of your time after your classes because you will probably have a lot more time than you think. But also with my major, a lot of the work is done in studio, which is really nice. So I don't have too much homework at night, but I definitely think it's important that you don't procrastinate because the end of the semester, it definitely catches up to you.
Yeah, for RISD, the first year thing is a bit different. You don't start your major right away. You go into a foundation year where you're automatically registered for required classes. So on Mondays, I had a drawing studio, Tuesday, a design studio, and Thursday, I had a spatial studio. So drawing is basically just traditional drawing like charcoal, and design is basically like color stuff. I'm not too sure as well what it's about, but and spatial is mostly 3D work. And on Wednesdays I would have literature classes, and Fridays would be art history lectures. And for literature and art history, they would be like afternoon things, and studio classes would be all 8 a.m.s. And all the studio classes were also 8 hours long. So in the morning, it would be split up into the morning and then lunch and then like the late afternoon or evening. So after studio classes, like when you're completely done, it would be like 6 p.m. at the latest. And yeah, you don't really have time to work on your homework during class. Most of the time is spent on just classwork. So like you have to do like everything out of class for homework. So I would usually like right after eating dinner, I would go to the workroom in my dorm building and just work on it, stay up if I have to, and yeah, immediately working on it was pretty helpful because it's really easy to procrastinate with like the amount of work you get. So yeah, that was sort of like a typical day for me.
So I have a few more questions, but I did want to tell anybody who is here listening that if they want to put questions in the chat, I can ask those questions as well. Right now, we're working off of some predetermined questions that the PTSA members came up with. So in the beginning, when we first started, we talked about how Wootton prepared you. One of the questions that we have is, what do you think Wootton did not prepare you for? So either it could be something that you wish could be changed at Wootton, or it could just be something that high school just itself by its nature doesn't prepare you for the college experience.
I think just honestly the rigor of the classes. Like even to AP classes, like AP biology was a walk in the park compared to any class I took last semester. I think just like, yeah, just the difficulty of the classes and the amount of work, because even for my AP courses, I think 3 1 year, and I never had more than 2 hours of homework a day. And I have like 4 hours minimum a day. I don't know if it's the same across other majors. STEM majors tend to have really heavy course load and a lot of studying outside of class. I think that's also something high school doesn't really prepare you as much for. High school, you got a test, you study for the test, and that's it. Whereas, at least for me, as soon as you learn the material, you have to start studying it, and practice problems, just keep reviewing, because so much of the material is there's so much material that's covered in such a short time that if you don't study, you're going to get lost very quickly. And I think that's definitely something new for me in college, is just the amount of material that I need to comprehend at once, and the need to study like on a daily basis, essentially.
Yeah, I would sort of agree on that. I think rigor was a thing that I was relatively unprepared for. And I sort of talked about this at the beginning of sort of like having or getting to be able to see your teachers every single day sets you up in a nice routine. And because college schedules don't work that way, you're only seeing your professors like twice a week in class. You really have to treat it less like you're going in to learn something and more about you're going to check base with that you're on the right track. So I think the fact that high school is structured in a way that you're less responsible for your own learning, that was something that I was unprepared for, and I don't think that's really anybody's fault. I think that's just the way it is. And again, I would say sort of like off as an offshoot of that, time management, having to learn how to study on your own when you're just presented with the material and it's not coming out of somebody's mouth to you, is an adjustment that takes a minute.
For me, I think that this isn't really on the academic side, but for me, since most of my classes are art classes, I think just Wooten even offering more art classes and just really letting kids have creative control, because a lot of my teachers let us have that now. I mean, we have structured projects, but I can go and talk to my teacher about this is how I want to do the project, and they really encourage you to stretch the limits. And I think that in high school it was definitely very hard to do that because there was a lot of pushback. Um, and also about like my level of ability and being able to take certain classes when I I just think that maybe that's something students should be able to decide. And yeah, and I also wish like fashion class, I mean, there wasn't too many kids who also like fashion, but maybe like more community with other schools in the area who have higher programs.
Yeah, mine's also pretty much art related, but for routine art classes, I wish they had some, I guess, larger scale assignments, because most of the assignments I did here were all very large normally than like I would ever consider or think of or have done in at Wooten. So I sort of wish they did that, and I agree with like what um was already said, which is like the rigor and workload. It's much different than what Wooten gives you. So
So one of the other questions that we had is for all of you panelists, if you could give yourself last year, so this time last year, advice, whether that's about how to wrap up high school, whether that's about the college experience, like selecting a college, whatever, what advice would you give your 1 year ago self?
Oh, there's so many things I would say, but definitely be open to trying new things. You might not always like one thing, or like one method of studying, or one friend group. College is all about figuring out who you are, so just being open to discovering that, and meeting new people and everything. Also, not to be afraid of failure, and not to set too high of a standard for yourself, at least not an unrealistic one, because like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where, like, what the name of the school you go to is, or like um, how prestigious it is, what your major is. As long as you're studying something that you're interested in at a school that you like, it doesn't matter. Just college is all about again, like open-mindedness, new experiences. So if you have a closed mind and be like, I only want to go to these schools, I can only study this, like, and I only want to like talk to these types of people, you're not gonna have a good time in college. So just, I guess, being open-minded, and also learn to study because I was in for quite a rude awakening when it came time to prepare for my first exam. I yeah, organic chemistry is not something that you should go into without knowing how to study. Just yeah.
For me, I think college was just felt like this big, like scary, nebulous cloud in the distance, and I wasn't really sure like how to approach it or what to do, and it gave me a lot of anxiety because I wasn't sure what I wanted to study either. Um, so I'd say just generally like stress less about the college experience. It will be okay. It will be okay. I promise. And I know the application process is like really stressful and very scary, and it really sucks. It will end. I promise. And again, what Lindsay said, it doesn't really matter where you go as long as you're doing something that you enjoy. Somebody asked me actually in the chat, so I'm going to answer this also. What APs do you think are the most important to take and helpful? APs are functionally kind of different than college classes work. I guess they're the closest you can get, unless you're doing dual enrollment. I've never done dual enrollment, but I would guess that that's pretty close. For Georgetown specifically, they're really picky about credits. So that was a rude awakening for me when I got here and realized that a lot of my credits were not viable. So if you're looking at Georgetown specifically, that's a thing. But I would say, I think my senior year, I got really stressed out that I didn't take enough AP credits. And I was like, oh, I'm applying to colleges. I need to do this now. Don't panic, sign up for a bunch of APs. Don't do it. College is ultimately, you'll get out what you put in experience. And I think that's safe to say for a lot of things. But as long as you are doing work that feels fulfilling to you and you are having an experience that you enjoy, it will be fine. I promise. It'll work out. So stress less.
For me, I think it was also about stressing which school I would go to because I was really set on wanting to be in New York and wanting to be in that kind of fashion industry world right there. But I think that being more open-minded might have helped me be less upset about where I was going and not dwell on it as much because in the end, I'm doing something I love, and this is like a really great program. And I've also met some really great people. Um, Adding on to what they also said, it's really important that you're studying something you like. I know a lot of people who dread what they do, but for me, going into class, doing everything that I like to do, that I have a little bit of knowledge about, is just really exciting. And it's not something I got to experience in high school, just because I take all art classes right now. And I think it's also important to make sure you're applying to those schools, even if you think, oh, like I might not go there. Um, because there are schools that I did wish I applied to and that I kind of skipped over, maybe because like FIT, the portfolio was a lot of extra work that I had already made a portfolio and that I didn't really want to do, but I do wish I had applied there.
Yeah, for me, I wish I did more research on the colleges I applied to because I didn't know RISD didn't take APR credit until after I got accepted. So that was a bit disappointing for me. But yeah, I'd say research is very important. And yeah, like everyone else said, just choose where you can really pursue your passion and like don't overthink it. It'll be okay.
So building off of that then, so that was sort of advice for your 1 year ago self. We actually have, I'm sure, freshmen and freshman parents on here. So they're at the beginning of the high school journey and truly the beginning of that college application journey, what advice would you give either to them or to yourself as a freshman in high school? Like what advice to get through the next 4 years with a goal of, let's say, college?
I think it's important to kind of explore your interests. Don't limit yourself to a specific type of class. I was huge into computer science, that I was going to be a computer science major, and then my counselor convinced me after a lot of arguing to take AP biology, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to hate this class. Took it, and now I'm a biology major. So definitely be open about the classes you're taking. Another thing, your grades really do matter. It's a lot harder to get into schools if you have a lower GPA. So especially your core classes, chemistry, biology, English, math, the electives they don't care about as much, but just really strive to get the best grades that you can get. And don't be afraid to ask for help. The teachers don't want you to fail. They want you to do well in the classes, but it's not they again, I mean, in college especially, no one holds your hand. And middle school people are, in high school, they still are, but not as much. So I guess it's still an adjustment. So looking to prepare for college and I guess for high school, just be sure to advocate for yourself and get help when you need it. I guess another thing would just to be make friends. Like try to have a social life, be open, talk to people you might not usually talk to because you never know who you might meet, the connections you might make. So I think it's important to really have a balanced social and academic life because if you only focus on academics, you're going to be absolutely miserable and you don't want to burn out before you even hit college. So just make sure you de-stress, make friends, have fun. You only get high school once, so make the most of it.
Yeah, so I would agree with a lot of what Lindsay said. I think more than focusing on getting good grades themselves, trying to build those study habits early on so you're not suddenly at college and realize you don't know how to study. I think that's more important than like just necessarily getting good grades. Although hopefully your study habits are helping you get good grades. I would say one thing that I realized in high school was that people grow a lot. And sometimes that means that relationships that you have with people in middle school will change through high school, and that's still the same as you go from the high school to college transition. Sometimes you realize that you were only friends with people because you were in the same class and you saw them every day. And I think just acknowledging that different people play different roles in your life and those roles will change as you continue is something that you have to get comfortable with. And yeah, I would also recommend exploring your interests. That's actually how I used APs at Wootton. Was sort of like a dip my toes in the water before I decide to pursue it in college. Yeah, I would say that electives are something that you should take advantage of. And yeah, I think that even if something doesn't work out in the long run, trying something will always serve a purpose. So even if the only purpose was I realized that I didn't like taking higher level math, great. Now you are sure that you don't want to be a math major. For me, I think having that definite no is better than just being unsure and then feeling like, oh, I regret. If only I did this. So yeah, just say yes more often.
I agree with Haley. I think it's important to like say yes to more things, try new things. This is high school. As a freshman, I don't feel like you should stress as much about college and just really live in the moment of high school until you get to your sophomore year and you start thinking about colleges and things. I just think that's so important. And because I mean, I always think back to the friends I made freshman year and um, how amazing it was to just I went to Cabin John, so it was really different for me going into school with a lot of people. But it was also really nice meeting those people. And I also think it's important to not stress as much about taking as many APs as you can. I think that at Wooten, that's definitely like engraved in our brains a little bit, but I think you need to manage your workload. So if you know you're not going to be able to take this AP and not be super stressed out, I think it's important to maybe hold off on that or kind of balance your schedule more. As an R major, I didn't need to take as many APs. And so I didn't in high school. And I think that ultimately definitely helped my stress level, knowing that in college I wouldn't need those credits.
Yeah, like Lindsay said, maintaining your GPA is incredibly important because even art schools, they look at your like academic GPA, even if you think like it's only art related. Um, and besides GPA, I also do feel like extracurriculars are very important as well. Maintaining them and not just like starting and then quitting like in a short time frame. Um, I did martial arts for a while and won a lot of awards for it. So I feel like that in my application served a good purpose for getting into RISD. And yeah, freshman year, I wouldn't say don't stress. Like you're just settling into high school. So just take that year off just to sort of settle down, and then sophomore year you can start thinking about it.
There was
I'd like
actually,
to add something. Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
No.
So I think adding on to what Andrea was saying, extracurriculars are important in applications, but don't just like choose a lot of things that you're not interested in because they can tell in your application when you're writing about it. They're just like, oh, this person's just doing this because, like, to put another extracurricular in their application. Just pick a few things that you're interested in and try to get in, I guess, deep work with that organization. Like if they see that you're the president of an organization, they're like, oh, that's super cool. It's a lot different than just like having a lot of SSL hours. So um pick a bunch of things you're interested in and enjoy them. And then when it comes time to eventually have your application, then you'll be able to write about some cool things you did that you actually enjoyed. I guess I do look for more like diverse activities and stuff, because they don't want to just have 7 of the same people with the exact same application at their school. So pick things that you're interested in that may be a little bit more niche, but that you'd like to explore. So take time to do that.
And
sort
so,
of as a
sorry,
go
ahead, Haley.
Sort of as like a going on of that, if you're doing when you're doing like a diverse thing, I would say this is college application advice. When you're writing your college apps, if there's like a thing about that, I would say that all of your things should probably have like a main idea sort of tying them together. Like maybe it's leadership, maybe it's community. But having that sort of main idea anchoring those diverse interests are signs of a well-rounded, but also like a student that's anchored in like their core values. So I would say that that's something that I found really helpful when writing my college applications. Specifically at Georgetown, they like emphasize like these like values of the school. So if you're doing your college apps, maybe consider writing about that.
That's actually really good advice. And, just speaking from the college counselor position, I would say if to any parents or students who are, let's say, freshmen or sophomores, one of the pieces of advice that I would give you guys also is to keep a list of the things that you're involved with. Keep a list of awards that you've won or projects that you've participated in, because one of the things that I've seen happen to seniors is that when it's time to sort of list all of those things for the colleges, like their mind goes blank and it's hard to remember back to some of the things that they did as, you know, 9th or 10th graders. So I think that's really important to do what Haley was talking about building, and Lindsay, about showing that progression. Like maybe you started just finding a few interests as a 9th grader and then showing that progression. You should keep track of that for sure. One of the next questions that we got, which I thought was a really good one, since you guys are all at very different colleges, if you remembered, how many colleges did you apply to? And if you want to talk about how you sort of arrived at that number.
So I applied to about 15 schools, but that's not necessarily the right number for everyone. There's a lot of factors that play into it. Each application on the Common App is $75 for the actual Common application, and usually another $75 for sending in an essay or supplementals. So it's not exactly cheap to send in applications. You can sometimes get financial aid to send in applications, but that's not always applicable to everyone. Additionally, it just depends on, like, I guess, the diversity of schools that you're looking at. I applied to a lot of different types of schools because I wasn't really sure what type of school I wanted to end up at. And I tend to be the type of person who's okay at wherever I would have ended up. So I wanted to explore my options to apply to liberal arts schools, big schools like state schools and the like. I also applied to a bunch of safety schools, on target schools, and reach schools. I guess it also depends on how competitive your major is. If you're a competitive major, biology, computer science, anything in the medical field, some schools with more specific programs, like UMD's business program is extraordinarily competitive. If you're applying to a major that is more competitive, I guess more schools is probably better to apply to, just because it's harder to get in. Additionally, if you aren't the greatest test taker, it's best to apply to more schools that don't necessarily require that or that accept lower test scores. I guess just apply to a diverse amount of schools that you can see yourself going to. Don't apply to anywhere you can't see yourself going to, I guess is important, but apply anywhere that you can afford to apply to that makes sense for you in terms of your major and just the fit of the school.
I think Haley's frozen. Is that just me, or is?
Yeah, she's freezing up a bit.
Hey, Haley, I think we're going to go to Savannah and we'll come back to you because I think there's something wrong with your connection right now.
For me, I applied to around 10 schools, I think. I also did a mix of schools. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to an only art school, like only fashion design and arts like SCAD, or if I wanted to go to a bigger state school and get like the normal kind of college experience. So I ended up just really applying everywhere I kind of saw interested in. And I think that if you can afford to do that, or if you can get your fees waived, I think it's important to just try to branch out and apply to schools. Maybe you think you could see yourself going there, but you aren't sure. Because again, like I never thought I would go here, but they do have a really good program, and
Yeah, I applied to 8 schools, but it's mostly because they were all art schools and I was pretty dead set on art school. So, but I know someone who applied to like 22 schools. So it really depends on like, I guess, what number of schools you're interested in. But I'd say don't like be so pressured to like apply to so many because like one, the application fees aren't that cheap when it piles up. And two, like you have to I guess it's important to like see yourself going there as everyone else said. Yeah.
You want to try again, Haley? Hey, Haley, I don't think it's working again. Sorry. All right. Another question that we had was, oh, I think Haley actually started, was that Haley? Somebody actually started answering this one, so I wanted to go back to it. While you were in Wootton, what APs did you think were either the most important and or helpful for whatever reason, whether it's to prepare you for college, whether it was to help you find your major, anything? What APs did you think were the most important or helpful?
I would say that I didn't take an AP English course. I probably should have, but I did take a heavy science course load. I think an AP English or an AP Math are really good just because a lot of schools will accept those. Well, okay, a lot of state schools. I know Maryland accepts them. A lot of the more prestigious schools like Ivy Leagues or private schools won't accept a lot of AP scores, but it's still good to get those out of the way if you can. And in terms of like courses for interest, I think for me the most influential ones I took were AP Bio and AP Chem. I definitely AP Bio helped me discover my love of biology and made me decide to major in microbiology. And AP Chem was great because I got out of my first I got three no yeah, I got out of three classes for chemistry. I got out of general chemistry 1 and 2 and the general chemistry 1 lab, which is really nice. So I could start with organic chem and take it when I had a little bit lighter workload than later in the my schooling. AP Bio also helped because I came in with 2 classes of biology worth. So that's really nice. I guess if you're interested in a subject, or interested in exploring it, any APs that hits that would be good. Because if you end up majoring in it, sometimes you can get out of some of your major requirements, which is nice. Or you might just find out that you really like a subject, which is also really good.
For me, I think really the important APs that I could have taken would probably have been AP Fashion, which was at a different school, which if you are going in the fashion industry, I think it's important to have a little bit of experience. I mean, before fashion school. So I do wish maybe I had commuted to Blair to do that. But it was pretty far. So, or Blake, and one of those. Um, but I also would have wanted to take some English APs. I do really like English, but also probably would have helped me like skip ahead right now because um, I know people who got out of taking English class and it's just more room to focus on your major. Also, someone said in the chat, what are some of the strategies to be able to get scholarships for college? I think it's important to just look on their websites and usually it says in applications like you'll get emails about it. So definitely sign up for emails, text messages. Um, but just applying wherever you can. You can even search up online scholarships. There's like a Coca-Cola scholarship, like really just anything. And for me as an art student, I knew that submitting my portfolio would get me more scholarships. So I made it a point to put it together and do that.
Oh, sorry. As I said, Rizzy doesn't take AP art credits, so that wasn't helpful at all. But it might apply to other art schools, so I guess taking a look into that is good. Um, Even if it's our school, we still do liberal art classes. So AP English and like AP History courses like that, I'd say is pretty helpful. Um, yeah, and for scholarships, not only don't not don't only look into in-school scholarships, but also look at outside scholarships because like there's a lot. So just search it up.
I'm back. Am I back? Success. Okay. going back to the AP question, I kind of feel like I said more of what I wanted to. I'd say psych for me was pretty fun because that's what I'm trying to major in now. Again, using the diversity of AP classes at Wootton to your advantage. Just sort of like see what you want to do was really helpful. I found AP Lit really helpful, actually. It's sort of just training. It trained me to like think about text because I'm a humanities major. It's a lot of reading is part of my job. Learning how to like think critically about like arguments and stuff like that was really helpful. And as far as scholarships go, again, kind of going off of what Savannah said, I'd say like look outside of where you like think, and I'd say be confident in your own abilities. Don't not apply for a scholarship just because you think you probably won't get it. Throw your hat in the ring. The worst they can say is no, and it's better to apply and be surprised than not apply and regret it.
Oh yeah, one more thing I want to say is I'm not sure if this is still a thing on College Board, but like on their website, there's like a college search bar, and like you can see which AP credits they accept. So I think that's also pretty helpful.
So another question that came in is sort of related to we heard like all of the positive aspects of the college that you chose and things like that. So people want to know what are the things that either surprised you or maybe slightly disappointed you about the freshman college experience?
Definitely. Oh, there's a lot. I was definitely surprised by how, like, I guess, approachable a lot of my professors were. They were pretty eager to help, and a lot of them, they're all like all of my professors had PhDs in their subjects, so they were all very knowledgeable. It wasn't like they were just like teaching a subject they didn't care about. They also really did care about the subject and loved talking about it. So, definitely that was surprising to me. Something that was less great. My dorms ran out of hot water on like a weekly basis, and so they would have to turn off the water for the entire building often. So I would have to shower at the gym or go to the bathroom at the gym instead of using my dorm's facilities, which was annoying. But at least I have air conditioning. I guess other stuff. I was definitely surprised by the availability of materials on campus. If you can't afford to pay for your textbooks, most of them can be found at the library. Well, not most of them, but a decent amount can be found at the library. But I was disappointed by the price of some textbooks I couldn't find at the library. They make you buy textbooks and then you don't actually end up using a lot of them. I had to spend $300 on a textbook for organic chemistry that I used twice the entire semester. So that was pretty disappointing. But yeah, unless you absolutely have to or you don't understand the subject, don't buy the textbooks. It's not necessary unless you are definitely unless you think you'd need it, but it's just not worth it most of the time.
Okay. I think one of the things that surprised me, well, this was sort of when I was before I got here. When I was talking to people about their college experience, I was surprised at how many people like came in with a plan and then completely shifted. So I have a friend who's a junior who was saying, "Oh, I am going to be a history major," and then now she changed her mind. She's doing economics. It's like, whoa, not it was not at all what she expected so to do, but it's what she likes and what she's here doing now. So I would say that something that surprised me was the flexibility of major. At Georgetown, I don't know how it is for other schools, but at Georgetown, you don't have to declare your major until the spring of your sophomore year, which is a pretty long time. which was really, which again, as somebody who was coming in without any idea of what I wanted to major in college, it was really comforting that I had that sort of like cushion time to be able to decide something before I was really committed. I would say on Lindsay's point, living with people, living in a dorm hall, not always glamorous. Not always glamorous. Sometimes people are gross, and that is just something that is part of adulting. Some part of growing up, people are sometimes really gross. It is what it is. I don't really have any other advice for that other than you can be responsible for being a good person and doing your part to keep the shared spaces clean. But yeah, sometimes there are going to be moments where the hot water isn't working, or it's part of the character development of the college experience. You kind of got to go through it, and then the way it works at Georgetown is you can get the better dorms later. So yeah.
For me, I was really surprised and definitely not pleased about the amount of supplies I had to buy for art supplies, which is actually really expensive, and I did not expect that. A lot of it I didn't use, and some of the stuff I needed weren't put on like lists that I was supposed to get. Definitely this semester, like my professors would be like, "You need this textbook, you need this, you need this." So I was just constantly ordering stuff to get. And I really think that maybe the college could have provided like at least markers or some of the things that are more expensive. But like they do provide the machines, but like pieces to the machine, I had to get threads. It's definitely really expensive. Um, Another thing I was surprised about was housing. I definitely had a really hard time with housing. I tried so hard to get back near the freshman dorms, literally into anything, but they were not really willing to discuss it. It was just really hard. So I think that sometimes you might not get what you want, but it's important to make the best. I have friends over a lot, which is nice because they have their space. So I definitely like that. Um, but yeah, just be prepared, because you might not get exactly what you want. And then for me also, being out of state, it was definitely a big change. So I would say if you are planning on going out of state or you end up doing it, just be prepared and maybe even reach out to more people on Instagram or different ways, just because like when I got here, definitely that first week before classes, it was really hard to meet people because since I'm in an apartment, it wasn't really people, like people don't really talk across the halls or stuff, but I do have friends in the regular freshman dorms, and they like make friends with all the people in their halls, which is really nice.
Yeah, for me, the dorm bathrooms get really nasty. So that's like sort of a turn off for me. And just recently, I found out my room leaks water from the ceiling. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, and I also don't think like the security does much about it, or like the residence hall staff. So I guess that's one thing to think about. And yeah, art classes, the way they set it up, they make you buy the supplies. They don't really provide much. So that's also a negative for me as well. And I had one thing in mind, but I can't seem to remember right now. So
All right. I want to see if there's any other questions. I know we've been on for a while, but I feel like we've mostly stopped getting questions. If you do have a question, you can put it in the chat right now. So we'll give it a few minutes, but if there's anything else that you guys want to share while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions.
I do have one thing I want to share. I think it's important to make sure you're safe on campus. the campus and the university does a lot to have security, but there was definitely like incidents that happened during the first week in my building that were pretty scary. So just making sure like I have pepper spray on me is important, and just like knowing that like having a plan if I'm walking home late to walk home with someone, or figuring out if I need to call someone or whatever you can do. And definitely don't be afraid to ask campus security.
No, that's a really good point. And you guys are all at different schools. Do you guys want to talk about how security is handled at your schools?
Yeah. Let me just add on to Savannah's point real quick though. When you're choosing a school also, it's really important to consider the location it's in. Like, if you're a person of color, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, if you're a woman, it's important to apply somewhere that you're going to be safe. I identify as a member of the LGBTQ community. I did not apply to a single school in the South. I only applied to schools that scored a certain score on the safety index. I also applied to schools in states that I knew I would be able to get healthcare in case something ever happened to me. And yeah, in terms of security, UMD does a pretty good job about it. There's blue light boxes all around that you can stand by or like press to call someone. I highly recommend there's I don't know if it's the same for every school, but at least at my school, there's an app that you can use that lets you directly call the campus police or ambulance or anything, or contact the health center. It's important to know the campus police's number, because sometimes they can respond faster than 911 can. Also, just generally, a lot of college kids go out and party. It's really important that you always, if you go out, you go with someone, you leave with that same person. If you don't leave with them, you have their location. If there's any case where someone is intoxicated, they need to make sure that they get to a safe situation, just everything like that. It's a big safety issue. UMD has a really cool thing. The police will come pick you up, no questions asked, any point in the night, and drop you off at your dorm from anywhere on campus, which is really nice. A lot of people are hesitant to do that. They're like, what if because I was doing something not necessarily legal, I could get arrested. The police actually have like it's a helpline. You're ever in an unsafe situation, you need to get away from there, you need to get back to your dorm. 24 hours, the police will come and get you, no questions asked. So I think just really taking advantage of the resources that your school provides is important safety wise. And again, applying to schools that you know you'll be safe at, in terms of location.
Yeah, so going off of that, I feel very safe on campus. So even though like people think of like DC, I'm sort of like in the suburby offshoot of DC. So on campus, I feel very safe. We do at Georgetown have a similar policy to UMD, like Lindsay said. We have a GUPD, which is they have like a station on campus. If you're looking for places to for other resources to go. So every student gets bombarded by at the phone number directs GPD and
Okay, Haley, I think we're losing you again. Sorry. Andrea, do you want to talk about safety real quick?
Yeah, I can do that. Similar to Lindsay, there's like telephone poles like everywhere on campus where you can press a button to call like the campus police immediately. And security, they're always active 24/7, and their office is always open 24/7. So yeah, I feel pretty safe on campus.
For Savannah and Andrea, there there was a question about how you built your portfolio to apply to college. And I think that's really a good question for people who are interested in sort of like niche colleges. So if you want to talk about that.
Adding on to the security thing real quick, I think it's definitely very important to research where you're going to be. Going into college, I did not realize, well, I guess like after deciding that I was going here, even just hearing stories from people, it's definitely not the safest city to be around. There's a lot of shootings, which is definitely very scary. But yeah, definitely researching and knowing like a safe plan. My building has a lot of security, and when that thing happened, they made sure to get more. So I definitely feel very safe in my building, and I think that's important. And if you don't feel safe, then trying to talk to someone or get moved. But going on to portfolio, I worked with a private sewing tutor outside of school to kind of make my portfolio, but for me as a fashion student, I kind of chose what I wanted to do, so I made my own collection. And I basically having a theme for your portfolio is very important. I think Andrea can talk more about kind of the art sense because it's different for fashion. Um, but definitely applying with your best work. For me, I spent a lot of time, so definitely block that out. I actually spent the whole summer working on my portfolio into the school year, and I actually ended up applying to a lot of schools' regular decision, which definitely affected how I got into some because I wanted to have my portfolio just ready. So definitely being prepared and doing it way ahead of time because even though I gave myself the whole summer, it took longer. But really making sure that you have good pictures of your artwork and there might be tutors who can help put portfolios together, but also just researching about it, I think would help too.
Yeah, for me, I also looked at videos on YouTube where students that attend the art school showcase their portfolio they use to get into the school. So I think that's really helpful to see like what kind of pieces they submit. And private tutor is also something you should consider. I went to, if you want a recommendation, I went to a studio called Shine Art Studio, and the teacher there really helped me like know what to do for my portfolio and like what's best. And as for RISD, more than technical skill, they also look for creativity. I feel like a lot of people default to like to showcase like, oh, they're good at this, they're good with detail and like all the basic things, but like showing like what kind of artist you are, like what like how different you can make something basic into like part of you, something that relates to you, um something along those lines. And paintings, I think every art school likes paintings, so doing like that a lot is pretty important.
No, that's really great advice. And then for anybody who is online, if you're a student who's interested in art or music, either majors or schools, definitely come by and talk to me or your counselors about it because those schools and those programs are going to have very different requirements for you. And the earlier that you know about that, I think the better it is for you to in order to prepare, because like Savannah said, even when you know what's expected, I think it takes a lot longer than you think to put all of those elements together that you'll need. So that's a really great point. So we are coming up on 8:30, so it's been about an hour and a half. I feel like we've gotten everything answered. The questions have stopped. So I want to thank our panelists today for coming back. And anybody who's on from class of 2024, I hope that you remember how helpful all of these people were and that you consider volunteering for next year because we will be probably doing the same thing next year. If you guys have any closing thoughts, you guys can jump in and share them, but otherwise, I guess we are done. So thank you guys so much.